For the first time in my life, I felt weightless. The noise of the world faded, and I floated above the scene of the accident. I saw my body lying motionless on the road, surrounded by flashing lights. This is a testimony of a lady who died and was shown something deep about Black people that will surprise you. Kindly watch to the end to fully understand her experience. If you are watching for the first time, please kindly subscribe to our channel and like this video, also share to your friends, and may God bless you. Now here is my testimony. My name is Juliet, and if someone had told me that one day I would experience something that would change my life forever, I would have laughed. I was just an ordinary person, living an ordinary life. But that all changed in a single moment, one that I never saw coming. That day started like any other. I woke up, stretched lazily, and went through my usual routine. The sun was barely up as I made my morning coffee, the rich aroma filling my tiny kitchen. I stared out the window, watching the world slowly come to life. Cars honked in the distance, birds chirped, and everything seemed normal. But deep inside, something felt off. It wasn't fear, not exactly. More like a heavy cloud hanging over me, something I couldn't name. I shook it off, thinking I was just tired. There was work to be done, bills to be paid, no time for silly feelings. As I grabbed my keys and stepped out the door, the air felt strange, thick, almost heavy. I paused, frowning. It was just another morning, wasn't it? But the eerie feeling stayed with me as I drove, my hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. Halfway to work, the traffic light turned red, and I sighed impatiently. The sky had darkened slightly, though there were no signs of rain. Then, out of nowhere, a sharp pain shot through my chest. It was like a burning fist squeezing my heart. I gasped, my vision blurring. My breathing became shallow, and my fingers went numb. I tried to pull over, but my body wouldn't listen. The last thing I remember was the screech of tires, the blaring of horns, and then darkness. I don't remember the impact. I don't remember pain. One moment, I was struggling to breathe, and the next, I was floating. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But when I looked down and saw my own body lying on the road, surrounded by panicked strangers, I knew this wasn't a dream. I was outside of myself. I watched as paramedics rushed toward me, their voices urgent but muffled. A woman nearby was crying, her hands covering her mouth. But I felt no fear, no pain, just a strange, overwhelming peace. Then, I felt something pulling me, something gentle but firm. I wasn't scared. In fact, I felt lighter than I ever had before. And as I drifted further away from the chaos below, I saw something ahead, a light, warm and inviting, unlike anything I had ever known. I wasn't just leaving my body. I was crossing over. For the first time in my life, I felt weightless. The noise of the world faded, and I floated above the scene of the accident. I saw my body lying motionless on the road, surrounded by flashing lights and frantic voices. But none of it felt real. I should have panicked, should have been terrified, but I wasn't. Instead, I felt an overwhelming calm, like I was being held by something far greater than myself. Then, a force pulled me upward. It wasn't a push or a shove, but a gentle, undeniable pull. Ahead of me, a tunnel appeared, glowing with a warm, golden light. It stretched far into the distance, pulsing as if it were alive. Something inside me knew I was crossing over. I hesitated at first. Was I dying? Was this the end? But the tunnel drew me in, wrapping me in an indescribable peace. As I moved forward, I noticed shadowy figures standing along the sides. They weren't frightening. In fact, they radiated kindness. Some felt familiar, as if I had known them in another time, another life. Others were strangers, yet they looked at me with knowing eyes. They didn't speak, yet I could hear them, not with my ears, but with my spirit. You are safe. You are loved. Keep going. I pressed on, the tunnel growing brighter with each step. And then, at the end of the light, I saw him. He stood there, waiting for me. A presence so powerful, so overwhelming, that my entire being trembled. Yet, there was no fear, only love. He radiated light, but not like the tunnel. His light was deeper, stronger, filling every empty space within me. I fell to my knees, unable to speak. In his eyes, I saw everything, every moment of my life, every choice, every failure, every act of kindness. My entire existence laid bare before him. And yet, there was no condemnation. Only understanding. Only love. You are not here by accident, Juliet, he said, his voice like thunder and a whisper all at once. Tears filled my eyes. Why am I here? I managed to ask. Jesus gazed at me, and suddenly, images began to form around us. Moments from my life, times I had doubted myself, times I had struggled, times I had questioned why I was even born. I saw how every moment had led me to this one. You have a purpose, but the world has tried to make you forget, he said gently. I watched as the scenes changed, revealing something I had never expected. Before me, a vast land stretched out, Africa. But not the Africa the world had shown me. It was golden, radiant, full of wisdom and strength. I saw kingdoms, civilizations built with divine knowledge. I saw men and women carrying a spiritual power that connected heaven and earth. Then, the images darkened. I saw chains, ships. I saw a history rewritten, a people told they were nothing when they were once everything. And behind it all, I saw the unseen, the spiritual forces that had worked tirelessly to erase the truth. The world has lied, Jesus said, his voice filled with sorrow. Not just to them, but to everyone. Because if they knew who they truly were, the world would change. Tears streamed down my face. Why was this hidden? I whispered. Because those who control the world fear those who walk in truth, he replied. The vision shifted again. I saw modern times, people waking up, realizing their worth, remembering their history. But I also saw resistance. A battle beyond what the eyes could see. It wasn't just about race or history. It was about keeping a people from stepping into their divine calling. This is not just a fight for identity, Jesus continued. It is a fight for the soul of the world. The truth is rising, but so is the opposition. And that is why you must speak. I felt my heart pound. Me? What can I do? Jesus smiled, his light filling every corner of my soul. Tell them what you have seen. The world is waking up. But they must remember before it is too late. And just like that, everything around me began to fade. The tunnel, the light, even his presence. I felt myself being pulled back to the world I had left behind. My eyes flew open, and I gasped for air. Machines beeped. A doctor stood over me, his face shocked. She's back, someone shouted. I was alive. But I was not the same. Because I had seen the truth. And now, I had to share it. Everything around me vibrated with divine energy. I was no longer in the tunnel, no longer weightless. I was standing in a vast, open space where time did not exist. Jesus stood beside me, his gaze filled with both love and urgency. It is time, he said. I watched as the vision before me unfolded. I saw people, millions of them, trapped in invisible chains. They walked through life unaware, their minds clouded, their spirits dim. The world had told them who they were, but it was a lie. Then, like a spark igniting dry wood, I saw some begin to wake up. Their chains fell away, and suddenly, their eyes were open. They saw the truth. They saw who they had been before history tried to erase them. But as more people awakened, a darkness rose against them. I saw forces, both physical and spiritual, fighting to keep the truth buried. Governments, Media, even some religious leaders worked against them, trying to keep them asleep. The greatest battle is not with weapons, Jesus said. It is with deception. The vision shifted again. I saw people who had been silenced for generations standing tall. They were reclaiming what had been stolen: their history, their knowledge, their spiritual power. I saw them praying, not in weakness, but in authority. Their words carried weight, and their presence shook the very foundations of the earth. They were rising, no longer hidden, no longer forgotten. They were chosen for a purpose, Jesus said, and now they must walk in it. As the vision continued, I saw a time coming, a great restoration. Not just for one people, but for the world. I saw nations uniting, chains of oppression breaking, lies crumbling under the weight of truth. But before that restoration, there would be a shaking. The world would resist. The battle would be fierce. This is why you must return, Jesus said, turning to me. A deep sadness filled my chest. Return? I asked. But I want to stay. His eyes softened. It is not your time. You have a mission to complete. A lump formed in my throat. I didn't want to go back. How could I leave this place? The love, the peace, the truth, it was all here. Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder. You were sent to know this truth so you could share it. You must go, Juliet. Tears welled in my eyes. Will they believe me? I asked. He gave me a knowing look. Some will. Some won't. But that is not your burden. Speak, and those who are ready will hear. The light around me began to fade. I felt myself being pulled backward. I don't want to forget. I cried. Jesus smiled. You won't. The truth is in you now. Go. The warmth, the peace, the presence of Jesus, it all vanished in an instant. A crushing weight returned to my body, and I gasped for air. A sharp pain shot through my chest as my eyes flew open. She's back, a voice shouted. Blinding lights. Beeping machines. The sterile smell of a hospital. I was back. My body felt foreign, heavy, weak. The voices around me blurred together, but I could hear them. My family. The doctors. The nurses. Tears streamed down their faces as they held my hands. You were gone, my mother sobbed. But you came back. I wanted to tell them everything, to share what I had seen, what I had learned. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. How could I put the divine into words? Days passed before I could finally talk about it. I gathered my family, my closest friends, and told them everything. The accident, the out-of-body experience, meeting Jesus, the truth about black people, the prophecy. When I finished, the room was silent. Then, my sister spoke. Juliet. Maybe it was just a dream. I shook my head. It wasn't. It was real. My father sighed, rubbing his temples. You went through trauma. Sometimes the mind plays tricks. I looked into their eyes, searching for understanding, but all I found was doubt. They didn't believe me. I tried again. Friends, church members, even strangers online. Some listened. Some laughed. Some told me to keep quiet. I began to feel isolated, like I had been given a truth that no one wanted to hear. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stop. Jesus had told me to speak. Then, slowly, I started finding people who understood. Some had their own near-death experiences. Others had always felt something was missing, like the world had lied to them. They didn't laugh. They didn't dismiss me. They leaned in, hungry for the truth. And that's when I knew this message wasn't for everyone. It was for those who were ready. So I kept speaking, because the truth was rising, and the world was about to wake up. I had always believed that spiritual battles were just metaphors, stories told in churches to explain the struggles of life. But after my experience, I realized how real they were. The moment I started speaking about what I had seen, something shifted. It was as if an invisible force was working against me, trying to keep me quiet. It started small. My phone would freeze whenever I tried to write about my vision. My computer shut down the moment I finished recording a testimony. Messages I had written would mysteriously delete themselves. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. But then, one night, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I was sitting in my room, preparing to share my story online, when my lights flickered. A sudden chill filled the air, and for a brief moment, I felt watched. I turned sharply, expecting to see someone standing there, but the room was empty. A deep voice whispered in my spirit, "Stop speaking." My heart pounded. I wasn't imagining it. Something, or someone, wanted to silence me. The more I spoke, the worse it got. People online started attacking me, accusing me of lying, of making things up for attention. My videos were taken down without explanation. Strangers sent me hateful messages, telling me to shut up. And then the dreams started. I saw dark figures standing at the edge of my bed, whispering in a language I didn't understand. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. This wasn't just opposition. It was a war. I remembered what Jesus had shown me, the forces that had worked for centuries to keep the truth hidden. They weren't just human. They were spiritual. And now that I was speaking, they were fighting back. I had a choice. I could give in to fear, stay silent, pretend none of this had happened. Or I could fight. So I prayed. I prayed like I had never prayed before. And in the silence of my room, I heard a voice, not the voice of fear, but the voice of God. Keep speaking. I wanted to stop. The weight of it all felt too heavy. The loneliness, the fear, the constant attacks. I wasn't sure I could handle it. But the voice wouldn't let me rest. You were shown the truth for a reason. Speak. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. God, I'm scared. And then I felt it, a warmth wrapping around me, a peace that didn't make sense. I wasn't alone. The same God who had shown me the vision was with me. From that moment on, I couldn't stay silent. Every time I tried to push my experience away, something inside me stirred. The memories wouldn't fade. The truth was alive in me, burning like a fire that refused to go out. I knew then that this wasn't just a story. It was a mission. And I was ready to step into it. I started speaking louder, writing more, sharing with anyone who would listen. At first, the resistance continued. But then, something unexpected happened. People started listening. One night, I shared my testimony online. I poured out everything. The accident, the out-of-body experience, meeting Jesus, the truth about Black people, the spiritual battle we were facing. I closed my laptop, expecting nothing. But when I woke up the next morning, my phone was flooded with notifications. The post had gone viral. Thousands of people were commenting, sharing, reaching out. Some were shocked, some were angry, but many were waking up. The more people heard, the more the message spread. I received messages from strangers across the world, people who had felt something but didn't have the words for it. People who had their own encounters but had been too afraid to speak. I wasn't alone. At first, I felt like I was fighting this battle by myself. But I started meeting others, pastors, historians, spiritual leaders, who had seen pieces of the truth. People who had been speaking about these things long before me. We connected. We shared our experiences. And suddenly, the weight of the mission didn't feel so heavy anymore. I realized then that this was never just about me. God had been preparing people for this moment for years, even centuries. I was just one voice in a rising chorus, a movement that had been set in motion long before I was even born. The forces trying to silence the truth were strong. But the power behind the truth was stronger. And I knew this was just the beginning. I thought the worst was over. I believed that once the truth started spreading, things would get easier. But I was wrong. The attacks didn't stop, they grew stronger. And they came from places I never expected. At first, I thought the resistance would only come from skeptics, from people who didn't believe in near-death experiences or spiritual revelations. But then, the real attacks began. People I had known for years, friends, even family, started turning against me. Juliet, maybe you should stop talking about this so much. Are you sure this wasn't just a dream? Be careful. You don't want to bring trouble on yourself. Some were worried. Some were angry. And some looked at me like I was losing my mind. But I knew what I had seen. I knew what Jesus had shown me. And I couldn't turn back. Then came the real threats. Strange messages from unknown numbers. Emails warning me to stop speaking. One night, I received a call. A deep voice, distorted and unnatural, whispered through the line. "You need to stop." Then silence. My hands shook as I put the phone down. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Someone, or something, was trying to scare me into silence. But the worst came when I saw it. It was late. I was writing, pouring my heart into another message when the room suddenly felt wrong. The air grew heavy. The light from my lamp dimmed, flickering for no reason. And then, I saw it. A shadow. It wasn't cast by anything in the room. It had no shape, no face, yet it moved, slowly, deliberately, toward me. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. An overwhelming darkness filled the space, pressing down on me, suffocating. Then, a whisper echoed in my mind. "Be silent." I felt fear grip my chest. My body refused to move. But in that moment, something deep inside me, something stronger than fear, rose up. "Jesus!" I gasped. And just like that, the shadow vanished. The room grew lighter. The weight lifted. I knew then that this was more than just human opposition. This was spiritual warfare. That night, as I prayed, I was taken into another vision. I saw a battlefield, not one of swords and guns, but of truth and deception. Two forces stood against each other. One side was clothed in light, standing firm, their voices speaking words that carried power. The other side was cloaked in darkness, their mouths spewing lies, chains wrapped around the people who followed them. And in the middle was the world. People stood confused, uncertain, caught between truth and deception. And then I saw us, those who had been given the truth. Some stood boldly, declaring what they knew. Others hesitated, afraid of what would happen if they spoke. And some turned their backs completely, choosing silence over battle. I turned to Jesus, who stood beside me, his face solemn. "This is the war," he said. "And it has already begun." It wasn't a war that could be fought with weapons. It was a war for souls. For centuries, the enemy had kept people bound, especially black people, through lies, oppression, and spiritual blindness. And now, the truth was breaking free. That's why the attacks had come. That's why the resistance was so strong. The enemy wasn't just fighting me. He was fighting all who were waking up. Then Jesus showed me something even deeper. I saw generations of black people, warriors, prophets, kings, and queens, standing in divine power. I saw their connection to God, their wisdom, their strength. And I saw how it had been stolen. Through colonization. Through slavery. Through centuries of being told they were less than what God had created them to be. They were meant to lead, Jesus said. But the world feared their power. That's why the enemy had worked so hard to keep them blind. Because when they wake up, when they remember who they are, the world changes. And now that awakening had begun. Jesus turned to me, his eyes filled with urgency. But there is still more to come. The vision shifted. I saw the earth trembling. Floods, fires, disasters unlike anything before. I saw governments crumbling, economies collapsing, people crying out for help, for answers. And I saw the enemy moving in, ready to take advantage of the chaos. The world must be shaken before it is restored, Jesus said. But those who know the truth must stand firm. Then he looked straight at me. "Prepare them." I gasped as I came out of the vision, my heart racing. The world wasn't ready. Most people were still sleeping. But soon, they wouldn't be able to ignore the truth. Everything was about to change. That's why I couldn't stop. That's why I had to keep speaking, no matter the cost. Because the shaking was coming. And when it did, people would need to know the truth. They would need to remember who they were. They would need to know God's plan. Every person would have to choose, truth or deception, faith or fear. There would be no more room for sitting on the fence. No more time to wait. This was the moment. I knew the attacks would get worse. The resistance would grow stronger. But I also knew I wasn't alone. God was with me. And no matter what came next, I would not be silent. I still felt fear sometimes. The threats, the opposition, the strange things happening around me, it all weighed on me. But I remembered something Jesus said. Fear is the weapon of the enemy. Faith is the weapon of my people. So I chose faith. Every time fear whispered, I prayed louder. Every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself of what I had seen. I had met Jesus. I had seen the truth. Nothing could change that. More attacks came. More people tried to silence me. But something else happened. Too. More people started listening. The truth was spreading. And the enemy was losing control. No matter what happened next, I knew one thing. I would not stop. I would not be silent. The battle was here. And I was ready to fight. As the battle raged on, a final prophecy echoed in my heart. It was a message meant not just for me, but for everyone who could hear it. In the quiet stillness of the night, I was shown a vision of a new world rising from the ashes. A world where people had remembered their true identity, where they knew their purpose, and where faith had triumphed over fear. But this new world wouldn't come without cost. The shaking had to happen first. The truth had to be revealed, no matter how painful. And those who embraced the truth would rise above the chaos, guiding the lost to a place of healing and restoration. This was the final prophecy. The truth would set us free, but it would be up to us to embrace it. In that vision, I saw it clearly. The rise of a new world, one that wasn't bound by old systems of deception, oppression, and fear. It would be a world built on love, faith, and the remembrance of who we were created to be. The old ways would crumble, and from the rubble, a new society would emerge. A society where every individual knew their worth, and every community worked together to thrive. I saw Black people rising up, reclaiming their place in God's plan, and leading with wisdom and strength. I saw nations coming together, not divided by race, but united in purpose. This was the world that awaited us, if we chose to rise. The key to this new world lay in those who remembered. Remembering who they were. Remembering their heritage. Remembered their connection to God. These people, those who had awoken to the truth, would hold the power to change everything. They would be the ones who led the charge in rebuilding, restoring, and bringing hope to those who had been lost. If you are one of those people, if you feel that stirring within you, know that you are part of something greater than yourself. The power to change the world is within you. I know the world can seem overwhelming right now. Chaos, confusion, uncertainty. But the future that awaits is brighter than we can imagine. A time is coming when we will look back at this moment and realize that it was all part of a divine plan. A plan to restore and heal the earth. A plan to bring us closer to God. The future's not set in stone. It is ours to shape, through our choices, our actions, and our faith. To you, the reader, I have one message. You are not reading this by accident. You were meant to hear this. The truth I have shared is not just mine. It is a message for all who are willing to listen. I don't know where you are on your journey. I don't know what battles you are facing. But I know this. You have been called for a purpose. You have a role to play in this awakening. Will you answer the call? The awakening is not a distant event. It is happening now. Right now. Every moment, people are waking up to the truth. They are shaking off the chains of deception, and they are stepping into the fullness of their purpose. This is the time. The moment we have all been waiting for. The question is, will you join us? The fact that you are reading these words is not by chance. You were meant to hear this. Maybe you've been searching for answers. Maybe you've been struggling with doubt, with fear, or with uncertainty. But here, in these words, you will find clarity. You will find the truth. God has a plan for your life, and you were meant to play a part in this great awakening. The choice now rests with you. Will you choose truth over deception? Will you choose faith over fear? Will you choose to remember who you are and rise up to fulfill your purpose? The time to make that choice is now. The world is waiting. The truth is here, and it is being spread. Nothing can stop it. The forces of darkness will try to silence us. They will try to distract us. But the light cannot be hidden. You have a role in this story. You are part of the Great Awakening. The mission doesn't stop with these words. It continues, through you, through me, through all of us. We must keep spreading the truth. Keep standing firm in faith. Keep speaking out, no matter the cost. The world is waking up, and we are the ones who will help guide it. The truth has come to light, and there is no turning back. It will be shared. It will be heard. It will be seen. The enemy will try to hide it, but the truth cannot be hidden. It will shine brighter than any darkness. So, I ask you, will you answer the call? The world is waiting for those who will stand in faith, who will speak the truth, and who will rise to fulfill their purpose. This is your moment. This is your time. Will you be one of the ones who answers the call? Thank you for watching. If you love this video, please kindly like and share it with your loved ones, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Until next time, remain blessed.